Okay, good afternoon everyone and welcome to the public forum. I'll remind all present that mobile phones must be switched off before the meeting and that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Please be aware we have a 5-minute time limit of speeches in the chamber. You will hear a bell at 4 minutes and then another at 5 minutes. If you could please wrap up your speech in that last minute, that would be great. I will also remind speakers that councillors may ask you questions. However, you are under no obligation to answer and speakers are not to ask any questions of councillors. I will also remind speakers that they have a 1-minute time limit in reply to questions from councillors if any are asked. And lastly, please stick to the topic of your item in the agenda so we don't have to bump you back on course. Okay, so first up today is Josh McKay here? No, okay, we might come back to Josh then. Secondly, we have Kathy Barnsley of Sutton Forest Business Association is speaking against the recommendation in item 9.12, Public Toilet Plan, draft for adoption. Okay, Kathy.
Hello, I'm Kathy Barnsley. I'm a local architect and secretary of the Sutton Forest Business Association. I'm here to speak to item 9.12, the Public Toilet Plan draft for adoption. We in Sutton Forest have been lobbying council since the early 1990s for a public toilet in Sutton Forest. The detailed timeline of our communications has been forwarded to all the councillors separately, but to summarize, in 2014, a public toilet for Sutton Forest was added to the unfunded 10-year capital works program for the years 2024-2025. In 2021, we followed up and a report was sought for the provision of toilets for Yarranbull and Sutton Forest. Unfortunately, consequently, Yarranbull got theirs and that was opened in February this year, but we didn't get ours. In the public toilet plan to be considered at tonight's meeting, we have again been left out. With no mention of Sutton Forest. Over time, the urgency for a toilet facility in Sutton Forest has increased, pardon the pun. We put out a petition and quickly amassed over 200 signatures. There is currently a toilet that is attached to the rear of the Sutton Forest Hall, a council property in the middle of the village. It is locked up and has historically only been used by groups who rent the hall. My husband and I live next door to the hall, and we regularly see cars driving into the hall car park, go around the back, obviously looking for a toilet. Sadly, with the toilet being locked up, they often simply do their business on the ground, and we don't find that an acceptable situation. Our idea, since we haven't been able to be successful with lobbying for a new toilet facility, is to open up the toilet that's there so the public can use it while we're waiting to be added to the priority list by council. Contrary to some recent advice by council staff, the building seems to be in good order and we cannot see any reason that the toilet should not be made available. I've put up some photos of the structure there on the screen, you can see. Yeah, I'm an architect. The building looks to be in very good order as far as I'm concerned. There might be some minor maintenance type of things to be done to it, but really it's functional and it's connected to the existing septic system that is there for the hall. We would dearly love to be added to the list for a new public toilet. And if it was possible to add us to the public toilet plan before it is adopted, we would be delighted. I can see that it would be, however, quite easy to update this toilet for a disabled, accessible, unisex single toilet up to modern standards. I would even be willing to donate my services in kind to provide required drawings and details for this work to be carried out. In the meantime, can we please have the lock removed so that toilet can be used? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions? Yes, Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mrs. Barnsley. Do you have you been maintaining the toilet in any way when it was open?
So years ago, myself and other members of my family were part of the Sutton Forest Hall Management Committee, and we maintained everything on the hall as a committee for many years. And yes, we did. We would clean it and stock it with what needed to be stocked. And in fact, we worked to maintain much of the hall. In fact, we earned so much from the rental of the hall, because we also advertised it for community use, that we were able to even replace the entire hall floor, timber floor. So over years, we've done a lot for the hall, and we feel very attached to it. We'd like to see the public start to use it more now that the puppet people have left, and we're hoping that that does happen. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Ms Barnsley, for coming along today and contributing to the community. And I want to extend a thank you to the whole Barnsley family. I know how much you have contributed to the community and to this hall in particular. Can you just clarify, did I hear rightly that you have been advocating for this since the 1990s? Is that?
Yes, so just to give a little bit of history, there was a public toilet in Sutton Forest on a little bit of land that was between our shop, the old Everything store, currently beguiled, and the pub. That toilet was there from about the 1960s, I believe, and it was removed in the 1990s. Since then, we've been trying over the years, many, many, many times, to get up the list to get a new toilet, without luck.
Thank you. And I have a follow-up question. And did I hear rightly that people are actually urinating in public around this area? Is that?
Yes, unfortunately, that does happen. Because they see the facility, it's clearly marked as the hall, and it looks like there's a toilet at the back. That looks like a toilet. People drive in, and doors locked. It's around the back. They do their thing. Yeah, yeah.
And around the back, is that? I did come and have a look. Is that a picnic area? Is that? I saw picnic tables and gardens. And so people congregate there?
Yeah, so there's a number of picnic spots around Sutton Forest, but there are, I think, 3 picnic tables on the hall grounds, and it's a beautiful spot to stop and have lunch. So yes, people do use it, and in conjunction, I think would really appreciate a facility.
And children, I assume, go to that picnic area?
Yeah, we see families there on a regular basis, yes.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I now call on Gary Barnsley of Sutton Forest Business Association, who is speaking against the recommendation in item 9.12, Public Toilet Plan Draft for Adoption.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Chair. Councillors, may I introduce myself? My name is Gary Barnsley. I used to be a lawyer practising in the Southern Highlands here for some 50 years. But I'm right at the end of a chain of Barnsleys. There are 7 generations that have been associated with Sutton Forest. We arrived here in about the 1860s. My great-grandfather built many of the fine old homes around the district, many of the commercial buildings, and a substantial part of Hillview, the governor's residence of Sutton Forest. We were successively builders, butchers, shopkeepers, and I guess I'm the black sheep of the family. I was just a lawyer. But I did also participate in local government. Councillor Kent is sitting in my chair. I was there for 4 years, and I'm sorry it's a second-hand chair, but I hope you're comfortable. We have been busy, of the Barnsley family, over all of these generations. There would be no Bradman Museum if it was not for us. There would be no Bundanoon Highland Gathering, Brigadoon, if not for us. The restoration of the historic buildings in Sutton Forest is down to us. We saved the hall from dereliction and renovated it. We provided those picnic tables. We did all this because we are builders of community capital. Our latest project, of course, is Booktown. And I notice that you've got one of our maquettes on display here commemorating the presence of the author Pamela Travers here in Bowral. And we're about to receive some very prestigious newcomers to Sutton Forest. No less than King Charles III and Queen Camilla are coming. They have taken a long-term leasing arrangement of Hillview and are setting about spending, I believe, some $50 million over a period of 4 years in its restoration of the works of my great-grandfather, and repurposing it as an opportunity for the whole world's eyes to turn to Sutton Forest, to say, here is Australia's version of what has been achieved in the UK at Dumfries House in Ayrshire. But we are lacking something in Sutton Forest. It's not a shortage of community goodwill, as you will have just heard. We lack a toilet, a humble toilet. Is it possible that we don't have a toilet? I can remember when, as a small boy in the 1960s, the locals helping to build a public toilet. And it wasn't until the 1980s that Nerida and I used to maintain it. I'd take off my lawyer's suit and put on a boiler suit, and I'd go and clean the toilet. But I made a terrible mistake. I wrote to the council and said, I shouldn't have to be doing this. Can't you please put us on the schedule for a bit of cleaning on rotation? The council's response was immediate and decisive. They hired a contractor who turned up without warning on Sunday morning at 6 a.m. and demolished the toilets. How's that for lateral thinking? If you haven't got the money to maintain the toilets, knock them down. And for the last 30 years, we've been agitating to get our toilets back. And in more recent times, with Sutton Forest now even more resurgent than ever, there are countless desperate people who are stopping looking for toilets every day. And it's bordering on cruelty to have to say to them, look, I'm sorry, the local council has not provided you with toilets. You'll have to drive another 10 minutes or 5 minutes, wherever it might be. You would not say that to your grandfather. You wouldn't say it to a mother of 3, desperate for a toilet. But I don't look around this room and see faces of cruelty. I see faces of kindness. And I know that you will find the means to deliver to us a public toilet in Sutton Forest at minimal expense, at maximum benefit. And I commend the proposal to you with all my earnestness.
Thank you very much, Mr Barnsley. Were there any questions? Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr Barnsley, for your incredible community contribution and heavy lifting over the years. It's acknowledged. Can you think of any wording that, as in your lawyer mindset, any wording that we could put on a sign on the existing toilet that might ensure that council was satisfied that they weren't at risk by someone using the current facilities?
In my practicing life, I dealt continually with questions of risk. And in my direct experience, they were all overblown. We don't need signage. We need a toilet.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Mr Barnsley. You mentioned that you see, sorry, I'm just trying to find your words, countless desperate people looking for toilets every day. Do you think you could quantify that for us at all?
We were challenged with the assertion that surely in a little village like that, there's no need for a toilet. But look at the geography of it. We're right on the Illawarra Highway. We're at the intersection of Exeter Road. And in the space of a few weeks, we gathered over 200 signatures on a carefully worded petition. These are not fictional people. They're people who subscribe their name and their telephone number.
Yes, Councillor Champion.
Thank you for raising that. I actually did have a follow-up question about your petition as well. It's very impressive, 200 people for a small place like Sutton Forest. I did notice that you have the phone numbers against people's names, and I'm sure you're right, they're real people that have signed on here. But I did want to know, because we don't have any breakdown of where they're from, I just wanted to ask how you sought, like the circumstances in which you sought those signatures and how you circulated the petition.
It was simply a clipboard and it sat beside my bookshop in Sutton Forest. I have two bookshops. They're a not-for-profit venture because one of our projects is to identify the Southern Highlands as Australia's first book town, and we're doing that successfully. So that's how the people were invited to consider signing of the petition.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, councillors? No? Thank you very much, Mr Barnsley.
Thank you, councillors.
Okay, next we have Ian Bollen of Canyon Lee Community Association, who is speaking for the recommendation in item 10.1, Notice of Motion, Wingecarribee Shire Roads Assessment Bus Tour for councillors.
Deputy Mayor, councillors, General Manager and council staff. The roads in our Shire are not just failing, they are endangering lives. My name is Ian Boland, a resident of Canyon Lee and a committee member of the Canyon Lee Community Association. For some time, the CCA has been campaigning and lobbying council on behalf of its residents about the state of our roads, with very little acknowledgement, let alone action. That is why motion 10.1 matters. It is logical and it's a positive step. Logical because no amount of data can replace what you see with your own eyes, and positive because it shows council is willing to listen, engage directly and put safety where it belongs, at the top of its priority list. Quite simply, our roads are unsafe. Bitumen is crumbling at the edges and is riddled with potholes. Gravel roads, the lifeline of rural areas, are corrugated, washed out and at times impassable after rain. This is not a nuisance, it's a daily threat to safety. In addition, due to the sodden ground, many overhanging trees are now at risk of falling onto roads and power lines, placing our community safety at even further risk. To make it personal, living in Canyon Lee today, I have to call tradesmen, couriers, friends and family before they visit, just to warn them to slow down, to take care and to be prepared for dangerous conditions on the road to my house. That's not what safe infrastructure looks like. Anecdotally, residents at the western end of Canyon Lee Road are now taking Inverary Road via Paddy's River to access the highway to reach Mossvale, as it's just too dangerous to traverse Canyon Lee Road. But this is not just about Canyon Lee or Paddy Rivers or one stretch of gravel road. It is about giving you, as elected representatives, the chance to see, hear and experience firsthand the conditions of the roads in sometimes overlooked pockets of the Shire that your residents depend on every day. Only then can the decisions you make be grounded not just in reports, but in lived reality. I, and I believe the whole community, understand that council faces tight budgets and that the needs of our Shire are many. But let's be honest, some of those needs are really wants. In any sensible household or business, when times are tight, the wants must wait. Not disappear, but wait until they can be afforded. We all want, I want, to live in a Shire that supports the arts, recreation and cultural facilities. And we are fortunate to already have many. But right now, what we need most is something more basic: safe and reliable passage around our Shire. The staff report that forms part of the motion notes that in 2022-23, industry experts, IMG, assessed every road in the Shire, providing a strong evidence base. and full marks to Council for commissioning that work. However, that assessment is already outdated. Time and weather, both outside of Council's remit, have taken their toll. The requirement for gravel road maintenance has changed, and that task sits squarely within Council's remit. Since 1 July 2023, we've had more than 2,556 millimetres of rain in Canyon Lee. That's 2.5 metres of water over every single square metre of land. This volume of rainfall has dramatically accelerated the deterioration of our gravel roads. And so let me provide a current update at no cost to Council. On the screen is Canyon Lee Road, photographed before last week's rain. This is not an exception, it's the reality that many residents face daily. The staff response also frames roads as part of the Council's asset pool. But let's be clear, roads are not a park bench. They are not optional amenities. They are lifelines and must be treated with a different priority. I note that $20 million has been allocated for maintenance and renewal of transport infrastructure. I will reserve my comments on where and on which roads those funds are being spent, but I will say this. We do not want a repeat of the Wombi and Caves Road experience in Canyon Lee, and if nothing changes, that is potentially our future. For communities like Canyon Lee and Paddy's River, roads are our only connection to essential services. Ambulances, fire trucks, schools, workplaces and businesses. A washed out gravel road that delays an ambulance or a pothole that forces a vehicle or a bus full of school children into oncoming traffic is not an inconvenience, it's a risk to life. That risk grows as we enter the bushfire season. The Rural Fire Service must be able to have safe access and, in worst case, residents safe evacuation routes. So, motion 10.1 is a step forward, but it must be more than words on paper. So this afternoon I call on Council to 1, prioritise safety. Make roads your first responsibility as life and death infrastructure. 2, show budget flexibility. Reallocate funds from discretionary projects where needed and put them into essential roadworks now. 3, commit to transparency and timeliness. Show this community when and where roadworks will happen and report back regularly. 4, engage directly with residents. The community does not need another speech, another report or another plan. We need action, commitments and follow through. Deputy Mayor, councillors, roads are the arteries of our shire. Arts and recreation enrich our lives, but roads keep us alive. I challenge councillors to reflect. When was the last time you actually ventured beyond the bitumen on either side of Tuggalong or Canyon Lee roads? If the answer is not recently...
We're at your 5-minute mark there. Do you have much more to wrap it up?
No. Let me finish with this. Council must now act with urgency. The evidence is clear, the need is pressing, and the responsibility rests with Council. For the sake of a bus trip, a few hours of your time and a relatively small amount of money, the residents of Canyon Lee urge you to come and see for yourselves the state of our roads. And then I challenge you. Look us in the eye and tell us these roads are fit for purpose. Tell us they are safe. But more importantly, do not just tell us, show us. Commit tonight, act tomorrow, and deliver the safe roads that this community both needs and deserves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, were there any questions for Mr Boland? Yes, Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr Boland. I certainly wouldn't want to see any vehicle, particularly an ambulance, have to drive on that road for anyone with any sort of injury or illness. With that road, that last one in the shop, in the last photo, which road is that?
Canyon Lee Road, as you pass the hall, that is about a 100-metre stretch. That goes for about 15 kilometres. And it's not just Canyon Lee Road. Tuggalong Road at the end, Bangadilly Road, and that's just in Canyon Lee. We're not starting to talk about the other villages, and I do, with respect, apologise to anyone from the other villages that this is their situation as well.
Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Boland, for coming along today. I know how many people you're representing, and I also appreciate the point you make of that this is a Shire-wide issue, not just Canyonlea, but having witnessed the roads myself, I can see how urgent it is. Have you got any anecdotal stories? I do recall meeting someone at the Canyonlea Hall who had to access the hospital and the medical services for cancer treatment, and the simple act of getting from home to hospital was so difficult that they actually considered whether they should get their treatment or not. Are you able to flesh out this issue on a real human, personal basis?
Yes, that particular incident I can't comment on. I'm not aware of the detail. However, I think everyone from Canyonlea sitting behind me will have a story. When it relates to medical emergency, I am aware of one particular family whose daughter had a kidney transplant, and for her to be transported backwards and forwards, let alone the difficulty in traversing the road, but the difficulty for the daughter with a liver transplant, kidney transplant, bumping up and down on roads was not pleasant. But in terms of other medical emergencies, I mean, we're 45 minutes on a good day for an ambulance to get to us. If they've got to slow it by 10 to 15 minutes because of potholes at night after it's rained when you can't tell what's a pothole, there's no hope. And I'm sorry to be dramatic about that, but that's really where it gets to.
Okay, thank you. And a further question, Councillor Moylan?
And Mr. Boland, have you seen the difference in the standard of the road on Inverary Road on the Upper Lachlan side and the Wingecarribee side?
There is a difference. Granted that I think the soil conditions and the topography is a little different, but even allowing for that, it is maintained to a higher standard than what sits in the Wingecarribee Shire.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Moylan?
And one last question, Mr. Boland. When you say there's a safety issue here, I'm hearing from you it's not only people having accidents in their cars, but it's also the access to medical services. It's also the access to an ambulance. It's a safety concern on many levels. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I'm in no way trying to pin responsibility for ambulance response times to the council. That's not what I'm saying. Given where we've chosen to live, and I accept that, we do have issues with access to services. There's no doubt about that, but we accept that and we can live with that. We've chosen to live with that. But anything that's within council's remit that makes that more difficult, that's what we have an issue with. It would only take a grading once a year, twice a year to really fix our issue. We're not talking about kilometres and kilometres and kilometres of roadway. And the other thing that I can just quickly say, SnapSend solved needs to be looked at. If you look through the records, you'll see numerous notifications from myself and other members of the community. The last one I sent, 3 weeks after it was lodged, I think about 3 weeks, don't quote me exactly, I got an email back saying, your matter's been resolved, that's the end of it, and nothing had been done. So I'm not sure how that happens. And that just adds to the frustration. We try to do the right thing. We're getting very close to residents going out with shovels in their own tractors to fill holes. I'm not sure how that liability stacks up for council or what their responsibility is in that. If they have residents who are trying to make their life safe because council hasn't done anything, maybe that's something else that council needs to consider.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions. Okay. I'll just remind speakers that there is a bell at the 4-minute mark, which leads up to the 5-minute limit on speaking, where another bell will be heard. So please just be mindful of the time when you're speaking. So next up is Anthony Hands, who's speaking for the recommendation in item 10.2, Notice of Motion, Development, Assessment and Regulation.
Yes, dear councillors and Deputy Mayor, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. I'm speaking to item 10.2, but I'm making it very specific to Local Government Act approvals under section 68. So that's at the moment, well, council has, as of late last year, combined those section 68 approvals with DA consents, and I commend them for that. That's a huge improvement. And I just want to bring to the councillors' attention what it says on the website about the role of councillors, key responsibilities, checking on council's work. They make sure the council is doing a good job and providing the services we need. So specifically under the Local Government Act 1993, there's a provision there under Chapter 7, Regulatory Functions of Councils. So this applies primarily to regional councils, not so much to your city councils. And Division 1, what activities require approval? So we've got Part A, structures. That's install a manufactured home, movable dwelling. And Part B, water supply, sewage, stormwater drainage work. And you've got Part C, management of waste, community land, public roads, other activities. So I want to focus mainly on Part A, structures, which includes manufactured home, and Part B, water supply, sewage, stormwater drainage work. There are issues with the issue of the Section 68 approvals, both in terms of timing and the conditions that are imposed with them. The feedback I'm getting from customers in my business, I'm from Advanced Building Certifiers, so I do regularly get these type of documents coming over my desk, and it's my responsibility to ensure that development consent conditions generally are met that's part of my role as a principal certifier and accredited certifier. And I do see a lot of conditions coming through on DAs which really do frustrate the customers because they feel, well, they've been through the process through council, getting a DA and a Section 68, and then when you look at the conditions, strangely enough, there's a condition there requiring further information to go back to council prior to issue of a construction certificate. So they can't start any work until they provide further information back to council. And it doesn't actually say under what process. For example, there may be a condition. Prior to issue of construction certificate, provide details of the stormwater drainage system, all the figures and calculations demonstrating compliance with council's DCP. 2, council's development engineer. Under what process that occurs, it's silent. It's silent as to whether there are any extra fees to be paid, but generally under a Section 68 there is a fee to be paid. And people feel, well, I've made that application, why do I have to bring back further information to council? Surely council should have dealt with that when they had the application. So there is that sort of frustration. I think there does need to be some review of these type of conditions, and those sort of conditions I don't think really are justified. I think there should be more oversight of these Section 68 approvals, whether they're separate to the DA or whether they're at the same time. But the anecdotal evidence I'm getting from customers is it takes about 2 months to get a Section 68 approval. That's dramatically increased. I do recall back in 2010, it would take about three 3 days, 2 weeks would be considered a very long time to get a Section 68 approval. So why it's taking 2 months now, I know that time has come down from about 6 months to 2 months. That's a big improvement, but it's still not so good. And you've got to remember that Sydney Water area, you can get this type of approval. It's not a Section 68, but it's an approval in relation to sanitary drainage works and water plumbing, all that sort of thing. You can do that online and get your clearance just as you do it online. If there needs to be further assessment done, it tells you to go to a coordinator. So it's a very streamlined process, very fast process. Secondly...
Oh, excuse me, Mr Hans, you're just at your time there. Are you able to summarise?
Okay. The other topic I just want to briefly get on to, Section 68, install a manufactured home, very controversial. There is provision there under Regulation 77, Local Government Act, for policies to be brought forward to notice of intending applicants. And 187, public availability of local policy. So I've searched on Council's website. There's no local approvals policy. If someone wants to lodge a Section 68 application, that's the way it gets approved for a prefabricated home. So it's mandatory, and yet people are scratching their heads. Well, what are the requirements for a prefabricated home? The council doesn't even have a policy on it. I mean, how are we supposed to know how to prepare an application? Anyway, that's a point that I want to make. And the other thing is, I just think that, like DAs, it would be very good if there was a reporting period, so it can be monitored about the timing of these and try and get an improvement. So a monthly monitoring period, I think, would be very good.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr Hans. Were there any questions from the councillors? Councillor Russell.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming and speaking with us. So I just need to clarify. Could you tell me more about that last point you were making? I was trying to take notes and I didn't quite understand. You're saying that we have a...
saying is that there's a requirement of the local government to have approval from council as an activity under Section 68 of the Local Government Act for putting a prefabricated home on land, private land. And so that's an obligation. A lot of people are finding, well, it's just so hard, we'll just go and do it without any approval. But there should really be an approvals policy which outlines all council's guidelines to obtain an approval for a manufactured home on private land. It's just absent.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Hans, for coming along today and sharing your insights. How long have you been a certifier in the Wingecarribee?
For a couple of years, I was working with Wingecarribee Council as a building surveyor, doing inspections and building approvals. And since then, in 2001, that's when I went into private practice, and I've continued to be in private practice as a building certifier, principal certifier in the Wingecarribee area. Yeah, I live and reside here. Yes, thank you.
Okay. And have you seen these prefabricated house policies in other councils?
I can't recall any other council having it, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Councillor Kent.
Mr Hans, thanks very much for that.
Oh, Mr Hans, if you wouldn't mind just pressing your microphone there.
Turn yours on.
Thank you.
Thanks for that feedback. Have you shared the text of this?
No, I haven't shared the text. No.
Okay. Is it is a form of a?
Sort of book form.
Okay.
It's not extended form.
Would you is your preferred thing to come along to a forum and go through it in more detail with the staff, or to put something, because we frequently get issues raised by community members in writing, and then we can respond in writing. What's your preferred method?
Yeah, I'd be quite happy to put forward a written submission, for council representatives to consider, and I would like to do that. Yes, thank you.
Perhaps you could put that to me after gym on a Monday.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, councillors.
Okay, and our next speaker is Theo Onisfru, is speaking against the recommendation in item 10.3, Notice of Motion, Nunangulla Regional Art Gallery Review. Councillor Smith?
I just will leave the chamber because I have a conflict of interest. I'm the council rep on Nunangulla board, so I'll leave for this section.
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you for having me. Firstly, can I give a shout out to the Mayor? Mayor, accidents happen, and that's what I'm all about, the downside of life. The downside of a plastics factory accident is we know what. Many, many people being harmed. Secondly, I'd like to shout out to the Barnsley family and to the council that accepted their generous financial donations when they did, because it shows to us what happens when council is open to receiving money from residents. It can only be good things. Thirdly, everything I've heard today has ultimately comes down to one topic. Do we know what that is? Guess. It's M-O-N-E-Y.
Mr. Onisfru, I'll just remind you that you are speaking on item 10.3.
Thank you,
the
correct.
Notice of Motion.
We are talking about money. Everything costs money. Roads cost money. Staff costs money. Road maintenance costs money. Everything costs money. And if we are unable to provide the basics, then why are we spending money on the luxuries? No offence to the arts community, but I consider art a luxury. When we go to Sydney Contemporary Art Fair and we look at the price points, we realise that...
Can we just pause for one moment? Can we just confirm no one in the chamber is recording at this point in time?
I don't see why it's a problem, but in any event, thank you.
In our code of meeting practice, you're not allowed to record in the chamber.
Thank you. You'll make this video available to us at the end of the meeting, I presume.
It's available on council's website.
A copy I'm talking about. I'm not recording online. I'm sitting here talking to you. So ultimately, what we are talking about is M-O-N-E-Y. And so I empathise with all of you councillors because you're all newbies. You're new to this game. And you've come into a council riddled with problems and aspirations. But ultimately, the problems and aspirations were here when you arrived, and they're still here. And that ultimately, when you have problems, you look at causation. What is the causation of our monetary problems? Answer, very simple. There's one person here that is ultimately responsible where the buck stops, and that's the GM. She's been here for 4 years. And despite our monetary problems...
I'll just remind you one more time that you're speaking on item 10.3.
Correct, which is money.
About Nunangulla Regional Art Gallery.
Thank you. We're talking about
review.
The $500,000 a year that goes to that gallery in circumstances where some poor people have got holes where they can't get to a hospital quickly enough. I'm simply saying our budget's a mess, and that the idea that the general manager is sitting there with a smile on her face in circumstances where she's caused the problems and she expects to be reinstated for another 5 years is beyond belief. We are the slowest DA council in Australia, and she wants to be renewed. No one will poach her from us because no one would want anyone having that record. Now, I'll remind everybody in the room that there is an outstanding complaint against this council by ICAC. I got a letter from them yesterday which said that investigation will be resolved at the end of October. The idea that you are contemplating any major action without that being resolved is breathtaking. I've reported every single councillor here to the Office of the Ombudsman. Have a look at the reasons for complaint against councillors to the Ombudsman. There are 6 of them.
Sorry, Mr. Onisfru,
I think that all 6 of them apply to the majority of you. There's a couple here that are exempt. But at the end of the day, this council needs to look...
Notice of Motion for Nunangulla. Okay, Mr. Onisfru, I'll just remind you, we'd like to hear your thoughts on the notice of motion around the Nunangola Regional Art Gallery review. And in the public forum, it's important that you stay on the point, on the item that you will be speaking on. So far, we haven't heard anything specifically about the Nunangola Art Gallery review. If you have any comments to make about the art gallery review that is the subject of the notice of motion, then you're free to continue. Do you have anything to add about the notice of motion?
Planning staff on to speed up DAs, recognising we are the worst council for days in the country. Really and truly, I call upon the GM to resign now because we're a mess. And she should go. Please go. And please do not...
I think that's been several times I've asked you to speak on the notice of motion around the Nunangola Regional Art Gallery review. So far, we haven't heard any comments specifically around the notice of motion for the art gallery review. We can see that there are two clear points in the notice of motion. And so I believe your time is up. Thank you. Okay. I'll now call on the next speaker. Councillors, do we have any questions? Nope. Okay, there are no questions. Thank you, Mr. Onisfru, and I will now call on Josh Mackay. I believe he is here now. He was our first speaker. So Josh Mackay is speaking for the recommendation in item 9.7, Young Highlands 2025 to 2029, draft for adoption. Okay, when you're ready, you can take a seat up front there. Mr. Onisfru will have to ask you to vacate the seat.
So I was just enjoying the seat, which I was not allowed to sit last time when there was a different mayor. Thank you. I wasn't sure. Thank you for not sharing, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Hello everyone, I'm Josh Mackay. Sorry for being a bit late. I've got all our prelim stuff on. I'm a student from Barrel High School in year 11 and I'm part of the Wingecarribee Youth Council. And I apologise for the haircut. We had a cancer fundraiser at school. So I made a submission about the youth strategy plan, which I think is 9.7 on the agenda. And my concern with making this submission was that there was no environmental point, which was something that I cared about, and I thought that was a problem. And I know that from the youth forum that we had last year, that was something that was raised by a lot of people. So I saw that as an issue, and I submitted a submission, and it's now been revised, which is awesome, and we now have that. So I'm just here to say thank you. And also reiterate the importance of the Youth Council. And I think it gave me that opportunity to make that submission and to create that change. So I think it's really important, and it's great that we have that, getting the young people's voice. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Were there any questions? Councillor Champion.
Josh, thank you so much for being here today. Also, great haircut. I like what it stands for. I just wanted to ask you a little bit. Could you elaborate for us on why you made that submission? You said that the environment, those issues are important to you, and that's why you wanted to see them more clearly articulated in the strategy. Could you just explain a little bit about your background and your interest in that, and why you felt like you were representing other students who were also interested in the issue?
Okay, thank you, Heather. My background, when I was a lot younger in 2019, I helped run some of the School Strike for Climate rallies that we had in Barrel. We had 2 in Barrel, and there were a couple of other events run by other groups. But I spoke at both of them, and we received a lot of community support, and there's still ongoing, there's lots of community action around the environment, and there's Region Action and Win Zero. There's groups that have now popped up, which is awesome. At school, we've got an Interact Club, and we have an environmental committee, and we do a lot of stuff around the school, like bins and cleanups. that's my background. I've completely forgotten the second half of the question, sorry.
Sorry to throw you off with a double question there. I guess I just wanted to know about what you've heard from other students that you work with on these issues, and how you feel like you've said that other students are concerned about this. So I just wanted to hear you talk about general sentiment, like what other people have said to you, and how you're representing not just yourself but a group.
Firstly, at the public forum, I think it's on the the report on that. There was noticed that there was a lot of people that did care about the environment and climate change and were concerned about that, but there was no direct correlation in the actual strategy plan. So that was the main thing. But there was, there's all those people that showed up to those climate rallies and talked. And since then, there was a group of us. It would have been 2021 that we were trying to organise another school strike for climate in Barrel. And we had some students from Moss Vale and Barrel High that we were meeting to discuss things like that. And then just at my own school in that environmental committee, there's lots of people that are really passionate about the environment and looking after it. Yep.
Can I just say thank you for coming today to share that with us?
Okay, thank you. Were there any further questions? All right, thank you very much. Okay. Okay, that's the end of our public forum. Thank you to all the speakers today, and the council meeting will begin at 3:30 p.m.